So hi everyone, let's get this started. So first we're going to do the introduction to my webinar, which is how to complete your first story by Intravia Washington, myself. Before we get into it, just want to start by saying how this came about. So just a brief story. I was woken up around 11 on a Wednesday night with a dream kind of and an idea to do this webinar. And my root base for this growth as I'm growing has really been my spirituality over everything. So just want to start with that. Whether anything drives you, for myself, my drive has always been my constant faith in the Lord. Okay, so about me. My name is Intravia Washington. I work in customer service. I've been in customer service for a long time. Outside of my job, I would say my passion, my dream has always been to be in anything creative. And writing is something that I never thought of as a job or occupation or career passion. It was just something that came natural that I like to do. I love to read and I love to write. And that's kind of how this came about. Just sitting and praying and wandering and thinking like, what do I want to be in life? And I never thought the one thing that I enjoy the most could become a passion and be the forefront of what I wanted to be and become. So that's how I got here today. I consider myself more so of a private person. I really don't share a lot of personal things about myself, but definitely would like to share this part of myself with as many people as possible, because I am on a path where I am growing and transitioning, and I would love to share these ideas and growth with as many people as possible that can utilize it. What you'll see is that this is a broad field, and there isn't one person that has to win. So I definitely am one of those people that believe that sharing knowledge ultimately helps you grow as well. So that's what this whole basis is going to be about. Just me sharing knowledge, and as you'll see in the near future, as I obtain more things to share, I want to share those with you guys as well. So thank you for being a part of this. Again, my name is Intravia Washington, and I hope you enjoy this webinar. The objective of this webinar is what this webinar is about. So what we're going to hit throughout this webinar is just some writing tips and tricks. At the end, we're going to have some questions and answers. Also, some how-tos on how to finish your first book or short story. So doubling back, what this webinar is about, eventually what I want this to be is a web-based series geared towards writing tips and tricks, questions and answers, how-tos, how to grow your fan base, which is currently why, hint, hint, I'm doing this webinar. And with more involvement, I would like this to become a forum where ideas can be shared. And as writers, we can just help each other and provide the same just support and fan base from one writer to another. Why do we need this information? So the reason we need this information on how to finish your first book or short story, I kind of relate this to rappers. So I never heard of a rapper starting out with just coming out and wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to drop a whole album and drop an album of 10 plus songs, 3 to 4 minutes long, and it's an amazing album, so to speak. Nobody's dropping anything amazing by just waking up and saying they're going to do it. There's no way you can grow in any field without first perfecting your craft. So I say all that to kind of relate this to an example. So a rapper, like I said, they never started out writing a whole 3 or 4 minute song, and always give big ups to the old school artists, because back in the days you would hear 10-minute songs and then you have rappers now who could barely push out a 2 or 3 minute song. Let's just, okay. But going back, most rappers started out with what they call freestyling. You know, a bar here, a bar there, and then kind of work their way up to the quintessential 16 bars. And in rap, that would be considered like a short story. In our artistic genre of writing, a whole song from beginning to end would be considered like a book. And an album would either be like a novel or a collection of stories or a book series, so to speak. So another good example of this will be a cook or a chef. They don't just start out making a master dish. You know, they probably start off perfecting a sauce or one signature dish and expand from there. So I'm saying all this to say that Rome wasn't built in a day, and your skills as an author or writer will not just improve overnight. You can't just wake up one morning and regurgitate a best-selling book. I mean, I wish it was that easy. I mean, everyone probably wish it was that easy. And if it was, everyone would be doing it. But the great thing about writing is it's one of those skills that the more you use it, the more proficient you become in that craft, and the easier it becomes for you. And you may find it hard in the beginning and find that you hit multiple roadblocks to complete a few paragraphs or pages or a chapter or, you know, whatever your goal is to reach. But the more you immerse yourself in your craft by not only writing more, but by reading more, instead of drowning, you become one with that art. So we said all that to come back around to a few quicks and tips on how to complete your first story. And then by the end of this, we will challenge you with some homework. Okay, so for this webinar, you're going to need a few materials. So if you have to, go ahead and pause the video, go grab the list of items, and come back and we can pick up from there. So first on the material list, as you can see, is first and foremost, we want to come with an open mind. The reason I say this is the first thing you need to bring to the table, because I'm sure as a writer, you may be like myself, and sometimes you get in your own way, your own head, and give up before even trying. So my first challenge is to come into this with an open mind, to try something different, which would ultimately yield different results. So trust me, staying in your comfort zone does not produce anything different. So let's open these beautiful brains and let's get started. Next, you will need basic pen and paper. No way you can be a writer without the two. I do consider myself more of a new age writer, because you'll see me more often writing on the notepad in my phone, or I'm always typing on my laptop. But also I am really a sucker for a notebook and a ballpoint pen. So whatever it is that you're comfortable with as far as writing material, definitely go ahead and grab that. And then that's all you will need. That's the easiest part. So our first quick tip, your first story should be something that you can play around with. You don't want to start your first writings with your autobiography or let's see, your tell-all, or whatever that main thing that you want to write about. Your first few sets of writings should be some light ideas that you can play around with. I hate to say it, but you don't want to start your writing skills with multiple stories or books that you want to later use. This is more so going to be a practice before you write your big thing that you want to write about, or your whatever your idea grows into, or whatever that great writing that you have in your head. You don't want to start off your first few writings with that idea. So rather you decide to publish these writing ideas into something, better, is solely up to you. But more so, this is just a tool to expand and grow in your craft. So I decided to publish my first short story, more so not about to gain any clout or even for money. I more so did it for a gauge on my audience. So what I like to write about, what I like to read about, it was more so, let me see how the public responds to my creativity, to my interpretation of my craft. So rather you decide to publish or put out your writings is solely up to you. But this is definitely more so a tool to just expand and grow in your craft. Okay, so jumping right into it, the first thing that you see on our list of how to complete your first story is synopsis. The second thing we have is your outline. The third thing is just writing. Our fourth thing on our chart is free flow. And then the last thing you see here is edit. Now, the reason you don't see anything like publish is, like I stated, that's purely optional and solely up to you. Just doubling back, this is more so just a exercise on perfecting and growing your craft as a writer. So the first thing you see is, what is a brief synopsis? How to write a loose outline. When do I start writing? Just let it flow. And who edits my work? So to start off, what is a brief synopsis? So a brief synopsis is a sentence or a few short sentences on what you want your story to be about. Throughout this webinar, I'm going to use my book, Nadiella, as an ongoing example, and a few references or examples that I'm going to use to explain some of the stages that you're going to use in your writing. So, to myself, a brief synopsis would be something like, for my book, my brief synopsis was a businesswoman who spends the holidays by herself and has a one-night romance that she will never forget. That's it. Nothing else, nothing too much to it, just a skeletal of what I wanted my writing to be about. So, just like the human body, bones themselves are weak without anything else on top of it. So that skeletal, that one sentence was the start or build of my human body, of what I wanted my work to become. So, like I said, at this point, we're not building any solid ideas, no characters or a storyline, just a loose base of what I wanted my story to convey. Okay, so now that we're moving past the skeleton of our work, from here on out, you're going to see us build out those muscles, those tissues, that layer of fat, the skin, etc. Is what we're building up to as far as the writing. So don't give up. I guarantee you, it gets easier and it starts to make sense as you go along. So the next step is a loose outline. So this is probably single-handedly the solely most important step in this process. So outside of writing, the loose outline is kind of everything. So a loose outline is where you build your character's name, who they are, what they do, birthdays, likes, dislikes. Here you can build scenes, so to speak, in your book, interactions. Anything goes in this loose outline. So the good thing about the term loose outline is nothing is concrete. These ideas, your thoughts, can grow into something, solid, but definitely nothing in your loose outline is going to be concrete. Now, what I can say during this process is ideas that you thought were not going to be concrete can grow into a strong storyline, and something that you for sure thought would make it to the book may not even make it to your final draft. But the best part about this step is purely putting all of your ideas on a page. At this point, it does not matter if it makes sense or if it fits in your storyline or not. Later down the line, you're going to shave down things that don't make sense, and it'll come back into a 360. But definitely, it's better to have too much and have to pull back than to not have enough ideas or directions and then have to later try to go in and fill your ideas and try to expand later on what wasn't initially there from the beginning. So, like I stated, as far as this loose outline, throw everything you can onto those pages. So at this point, this is where you start writing. And I know this may sound crazy to a lot of people, but I myself do not write my stories from a hard outline. For certain writers, I know they probably are pulling their hair out, and it probably does not make sense at all. But this is just my method that I use, and it works best for me. But what I find is that as I write ideas down, they may not be solid the following days or so later, or even ideas I may have written the night before don't flow with the ideas that I have or the direction of the book at that exact moment in time. So basically, I just kind of allow my creativity to drive my direction and where I'm going. So there have been times where I stopped at a chapter. At the bottom of my work, I'll do a quick note on what I want my next paragraph or ideas or flow to be. And then the very next day, I sit at my desk to write, and I go in, and it's a completely different direction or idea that I want to go with at that time. And I'm not restricted to a blueprint or format because I'm allowing my creativity to flow and to drive my writing, which to myself makes the whole process of writing exciting. So, quick tip number 2. Every time you come back to add to your story or pick up where you left off, you should always reread your story from the beginning. I cannot stress this enough. I have probably read my short story over 1,000 times, as oddly as it sounds. So, quick tip is to always, when you come back to your desk or you come back to your notebook, before you pick up that pen and start writing from where you left off, reread your story from the very beginning. Now, what this does, this allows you to correct errors that you may have missed, grammatical errors. It also allows you to gauge a flow of your story, and edit or correct things that may not fit, and making sure that whatever you're adding up to this point fits with your collective storyline. So where you may have wrote those quick notes on, I want the idea to pick up from here, I want to talk about this, instead of just jumping in and presuming and resuming those ideas, you may find that when you use this quick tip and reread your story, that those notes that you may have left the night before don't quite fit in or don't quite make sense. And it just allows you to have a better flow of writing. So this may not sound like a step at all. Free flow. Just let it flow. And oddly enough, it may sound like it's out of place, but this is right where it needs to be. At this point, it is solely self-driven. This step is solely self-driven. I can only advise about free flow, which is, in my mind, letting your ideas drive you to the point of almost insanity. You want to write as much as you can. Load your story with unbelievable plots and ideas. You want to make sure it's full of surprises and includes things that your audience may not see coming. This is where you have fun and throw in those wow factors. At the end of the day, we are making your writing relatable. And let's be honest, if properly written, your characters become real people. And by your words, life is breath into these characters. So this is where you can make your character funny or angry or crazy or whatever it is. This is where you solely make them become relatable as people, because this is who they grow into and this is who they are. Your characters are going to grow into someone that into a person that someone can relate to. And the great thing about writing is, like stated, someone can relate to this character or characters that you have created in the writing. And our characters eat, breathe, work, feel, hurt, cry. They exist, and you have to bring that realism to the forefront. And this is what free flow is about. Now, the last step that we come to is editing. This is nowhere in the first 4 steps, because it's built in pieces. You don't really have to hardly focus on editing when you're going through steps like writing or building to your writings and doing your free flow. That's more so not for you to do hard edits, but to catch, a few, misspells, a few grammatical errors, so on and so forth. The last step is your hard edit. And what's inclusive with this edit time is you going through your story and finalizing what stays and what goes. And your final edit can be completely by yourself or by an editor. It is solely up to you and your budget and what route you choose to edit your final versions of your book. And the reason I use versions is because I myself had 3 final drafts of my final book, catching last minute grammatical errors, adding minor here and there's, and just making sure everything tied together before new eyes hit my words. And definitely during editing time, I went through some of the small things like making sure all of my text was right. Text size, text style, spacing. I caught some of my indentations were off on certain pages. So this is where you do your final, your hard edit before, if you decide to take that next step, before you release this for eyes to hit your works. Quick tip number 3. This is just a personal quick tip. I never write without music. If you follow me on social media, you will see me, usually on Snapchat, you will see me writing. My writing usually take place, it's always at night, between 10 to somewhere between 4 or 5 in the morning. For one, that's when I feel my most creative. And then 2, I have a child, and she is definitely most likely sleep during those hours. So that is my free time to work. And 2, at that time, I can set my own mood and energy. I have the lights low, maybe a candle or some incense, and I put on my Neo Soul playlist, real low in the background, and I just push out great work. This was written, and this idea came about the same way with my music in the background, and allowed it to just mentally set a relaxation as I wrote out these ideas. And before this goes live, I did post a question and answer discussion. So moving over, what I'm going to do is a quick Q&A from questions that I have received. And if you didn't get a chance to include your questions, you can always send them to me, and I'll make sure that if I do another video, to answer some of those questions as well. So, rather you noticed or not, at this point, your first story is complete. You have gotten past the stress of completing your first story. So here we have some homework or ideas that you can utilize. And what I want to challenge everyone to do is, at the end of this, is to complete a quick few paragraphs or pages, whatever you challenge yourself to, on any topic or any subject. And if you can't think of something to write about, I'll list a few ideas below. I challenge you to at least write, I wouldn't really even say a page, to at least write a minimum of 2 to 3 and complete the story. At this point, as far as the challenge, don't focus on grammar, how long it is. Just let your imagination flow and push out whatever you can. And what I want to do is a giveaway for the writer that has the best story. And I would love to do something special to support that writer as well, rather it being pay the cost of your first publishing or whatever great ideas that you guys can come up with, but definitely want to support the winner of that giveaway with something amazing. So definitely you guys can comment some ideas, and we'll see what we can come up with, but definitely want to support the winner of that giveaway by probably publishing something, or see what we can do from there. So I want to leave you with a few examples of some short stories. First, myself, Nadiella by Intravia Washington is a short story you can reference. Also, I recently just read a short story by Zane called I'll Be Home for Christmas. And you can kind of see in her reference as well, just a quick idea, a quick writing that, she pushed out that was just probably an exercise, so to speak, or just a brief idea that she wanted to share. You can see by reading I'll Be Home for Christmas, it's nothing really to it. It was just a quick story about a woman coming home after a long time for Christmas. So before we wrap up, just wanted to provide some writing ideas for those who can't, who I myself is one of those people. If somebody says, write about anything, I kind of go crazy, racking my brain about what to write about, because it's so much that my mind is trying to process. It's kind of hard to zone in or hone in on one idea. So for those that just need a little assistance, you'll see that just with a basic idea, your imagination can take this and it can grow into something that you never thought it could. So writing idea 1, and these are general ideas. You can even edit or change the basis of this idea as well. So one writing topic could be about a single mom and a coach getting together to save a championship soccer game. So that's one idea. You can change it from a single mom to single dad. It doesn't have to be soccer. It could be a basketball game. So you can always play around with the base of this idea. Again, it's going to be a single mom and a coach get together to save a championship soccer game. The second idea is just showing how writings can just, you can unleash creativity, and you can go completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a paranoia sort of writings, or those folklores or fairy tale writing, so to speak. So you can do just the basis of a short story could be a paranoid store clerk loses a priceless item and is pursued by a crazy customer. So this sentence or this idea can be one of those where, you know, it could be based off of magic, or it could be from a different planet. You can really play around with these ideas, and because it is writing, you can take it out of the norm and grow it into something amazing and crazy. So the second sentence is: a paranoid store clerk loses a priceless item and is pursued by a crazy customer. And then our last idea is: an inspector has 24 hours to regain their reputation. Events are made more complex by a secret that is later revealed. This is something that you can either hone in and make it very like a movie mystery, or turn it into one of those things where it was unexpected and it becomes a laugh or wow factor. So the last idea is: an inspector has 24 hours to regain their reputation. Events are made more complex by a secret that is later revealed. So starting off with Q&A, I only got one question. And that question was basically kind of answered within this webinar, which was: how did you start and how did you finish? And really, the answer to that question is listed throughout this PowerPoint, throughout this webinar, on kind of the tools that I utilize to complete my writings. What I can say is, in addition to what is in this webinar, really is just don't give up, don't get in your own head, and thoroughly allow it to be an experience and have fun with it. So if you use these tips and tricks in addition to what I'm saying now, there's no way you cannot complete anything that you set your mind to, or even complete your writings. It's really just having fun and allowing your creativity to flow, and you'll become a master of your art of writing. And lastly, I wanted to say thank you, everyone that has watched this video. Thank you to everyone that likes, shares, comments, anyone that takes the time out to put in their input or feedback. Just want to say thank you. And this is definitely a big step and a big inspiration to myself, and would definitely love to continue on this route of just providing, as I learn and grow, just providing that same knowledge base to as many people as I can. And my saying is: stay lit, have wit, and keep it writ. All right, y'all.